found it. I found the one field where I will be the best for all time. All my life, I couldn't sleep right. I tossed, I turned, I was haunted by a restlessness I couldn't name. But then, I found something that lets me sleep at night like a baby. Close your eyes and imagine the humid, heavy air of August 1988. We are in Arlington Heights, Illinois, a quiet, affluent suburb of Chicago where the lawns are manicured to a razor's edge and the porch lights stay on until dawn. This was supposed to be the safest place in the Midwest, but inside case file 88 Beta, tucked away in a box that hasn't been opened in decades, lies a story that redefined what we know about the predator in the shadows. Look at this first photo, the one clipped to the top of the report. It's a Polaroid, slightly yellowed at the edges. You see a woman, Helen Michaels. She's 38 years old, a brilliant electrical engineer, a woman who had just clawed her way into a senior management position at a rising telecommunications firm. She had just ended a long-term relationship, a clean break, and moved into this ground floor apartment. She called it her fresh start. She told her father she felt like a brand new person, full of hope, full of plans for the future. She even had a small garden, a tiny patch of green protected only by a waist-high gate. It was her sanctuary. But in the late 1980s, a ground floor apartment wasn't just a home. For someone watching from the tree line, it was a display case. The air in these old files feels different, doesn't it? It smells like old typewriter ribbon and heavy-duty floor wax. On the morning of August 12, 1988, Helen's father arrived to help her trim the hedges. He was early, 9 o'clock sharp. He knocked. No answer. He called out for her cat, Rocky. Silence. He let himself in, expecting to find his daughter sleeping in on her vacation. Instead, he walked into a crime scene that the lead detective later described as something that made the hair on his arms stand up. The living room was a mess, a drying rack knocked over, blood soaked into the carpet. But it was the bathroom that changed everything. I'm looking at the coroner's notes right now. The victim was found in the bathtub. It was filled nearly to the brim. She was naked, save for a single piece of clothing. But here is the detail that baffled the Cook County SO at the time. The water wasn't just water. The killer had poured bottles of industrial-grade cleaning agents and detergents into the tub. It was a chemical soup. The lead investigator, a man named Miller, wrote in his log, "The perpetrator is either trying to dissolve the evidence or he's trying to wash away the sin." But as we know now, from the perspective of modern forensics, he was doing something much more calculated. He was trying to erase his DNA before the term DNA profiling was even a household name. Let's talk about the brutality for a second, because the archival recordings of the autopsy are chilling. The killer didn't just stumble upon her. This was a tactical strike. He used a high-voltage stun gun, a taser, applied directly to the back of her neck while she was distracted. Imagine the betrayal of that moment. You're in your own home. You've just let the cat out. The TV is humming in the background. And suddenly, your entire nervous system is hijacked. He beat her. He strangled her until she was unconscious on the floor. And then, he took a small knife. He didn't just stab her. He severed the spinal cord. He wanted quiet. He wanted total, absolute control. The investigation that followed was one of the largest in Illinois history. They called it a special task force, but in the halls of the precinct, it was just the ghost hunt. They had nothing, no witnesses, no fingerprints that didn't belong there, just a single sample of biological evidence salvaged from that chemical-filled tub. They checked the ex-boyfriend. Negative. They checked the neighbors. Negative. So, they did something unprecedented for 1988. They initiated a mass screening. They invited over 1,400 men from the immediate neighborhood to give blood and saliva samples. It was a dragnet of historic proportions. And yet, after months of testing, after thousands of hours of laboratory work, the result was a deafening 0. The file goes cold here. For 14 months, The ghost of Arlington Heights was a memory that kept the women of the suburbs locking their windows even in the heat of summer. But then, in October 1989, a young woman walked into a police station in downtown Chicago. She was trembling. She had a baby in her arms. She told the desk sergeant, "My boyfriend is a natural-born killer."
I know you
Those
were there
her
that
exact
night, so
words.
stop lying.
She had found a tape, a VHS tape hidden in a box of old electronics. She watched it while he was at work, and what she saw was a nightmare captured on magnetic tape. It was a snuff film. Her boyfriend, a young man named Louis Peschke, had filmed the entire ordeal with Helen Michaels. I'm flipping to the transcript of Peschke's interrogation now. It's 20 pages of pure, unadulterated narcissism. When they arrested him, they didn't just find a murderer, they found a collector. In his mother's basement, they found a cardboard box. Inside were 30 pairs of women's underwear, each one individually heat-sealed in thick plastic. Why? To preserve the scent. He wasn't just a killer, he was a curator of his own depravity.
Where is it?
He told the detectives he had a website planned. Well, a bulletin board in the early internet terms of the late 80s.
The whole operation.
He wanted to call it NBK. He wanted to be famous for the very thing that let him sleep like a baby. But here is the part that keeps me up at night. The blue ocean of this case, the part the headlines missed. When they searched his computer, an old clunky IBM, they found a file titled The List. It wasn't just a list of victims he had already stalked. It was a list of 14 names. 14 women, all living in ground floor apartments, all living alone. He had been making silent calls to them for months. He was scouting. He was hunting. Helen Michaels was just the pilot episode for a series he intended to produce until the day he died. Peschke tried to play the crime of passion card. He claimed they met at a grocery store, that it was a consensual encounter gone wrong, that he only meant to make it look like an attack.
You don't understand. They
for his
know
video.
we're here. We have to move.
He even claimed his girlfriend was lying out of jealousy. But the evidence, the knife found in his mother's house, the taser, the sealed trophies, it all pointed to a predator who was far more organized than the disorganized profile usually suggests. He was a man who saw women as props for his own cinematic fantasy. In the end, because of his age at the time of the crime, he didn't get the chair. He got 10 years in a psychiatric facility. A slap on the wrist for a man who had a list of 14 waiting for him. But the story doesn't end in a courtroom. It ends in 2013, in a cold cell, where Louis Peschke finally realized he would never be the greatest of all time. He was denied parole, denied a transfer to a general prison, and he finally took his own life. The natural-born killer ended his own story when he realized the world wasn't a movie, and he wasn't the star. As we close this file and put it back into the dark corners of the archive, let it be a reminder. The monsters of the 1980s weren't always lurking in the woods or under the bed. Sometimes, they were just outside the window of your new, perfect ground floor apartment, holding a camera and waiting for you to let the cat out. Sleep well, Arlington Heights. The file is closed, for now.